Hey everybody, welcome back to the Combat Chain. I am your host, Patrick. My lynx has pounced its last, I assume, a small rodent of some kind. Lynxes are hunting cats, but not large cats. So really, just cognizant of their possible food chain here. Shaw, and with me is my co-host, Adam. That wildfire combo is really cool while it lasted. I guess I'll put my fancy boots on the rack and play Ira or something. Philip Chuck. Adam, I will not try to give you 18 hours of raw footage this week, but how are you doing?
I'm doing well, Pat. Man, when I saw the show notes for today and I saw those long, I don't know what you call them. I was wondering how you're going to pull it off, but you pulled it off quite well there.
Are you familiar with the old ECW wrestling organization?
I am not, unfortunately. I wasn't allowed to watch wrestling growing up. I was like, my mom thought it was evil, man. So I was not privy to such things. It's Animaniacs, Power Rangers, and wrestling were no-goes for me. Oh no, WWF raised me. No, my parents are very good, but I watched a ton of wrestling. But ECW had an announcer called Joel Gertner, and his thing was, "I am Joel." Oosh, long thing, Gertner, and usually a little R-rated in the content. ECW was extreme, so it had to be super edgy. But that's my influence there. But today is a crazy day because we got the banned and suspended announcement last night, and Worlds were rocked with that announcement. And we want to discuss that and more with our guest today. Our guest is one of the iconic faces of Flesh and Blood content. You can see him casting just about every calling and pro tour event around the world, whether that's on site at the venue or streaming at ungodly hours for international events from his own home. His YouTube channel recently crossed the 10,000 mark, and now you can find him looking forlornly in his once great Kano Blitz deck. Ladies and gentlemen, we welcome Stephen Cookus, better known as DM Armada, to the show. Mr. Armada, thank you for coming on to the Combat Chain.
Thank you for having me. It's an absolute pleasure to come and hang out with you. And yes, I am actually looking forlornly at this Kano deck, which I did make changes to. And you know what? You can still play it. It may not be great, but you can still play it.
I watched your initial reaction video, and that the first 20 seconds, I don't know if you felt it at the time because it was previously recorded, but you and I locked eyes, and I felt emotional for you while that was running, just sadness into the camera. I definitely felt that.
I'll tell you what, I had a very fun time playing up the salt in that video. I'm generally not a salty person. Yeah. And I was kind of bummed by the announcement, but I wasn't nearly as salty as I think a lot of people thought I was going to be. And so, you know what? I sat there and I'm like, I'm just going to play it up. I'm just going to full salt. I don't normally do that in my videos. And I just thought it was the perfect moment. And you know what? I had a blast recording that video. It was hilarious. At least to me, it was hilarious to me. So hopefully other people enjoyed it as well.
I think so. I definitely did. So before we get into the meat and potatoes of this, no one escapes the origin story. Tell us about the man before he became the legend.
Like all the way back to like high school, or what are we discussing?
When were you born? No, give me your intro into
I was born in a log cabin.
It's a stormy January.
It was a full moon, and no, I'm not going to go on from there. So how I got into Flesh and Blood, is that what we're talking about? Well,
that's a good start and stop, I think.
For sure, let's do it. I was scrolling through my phone back in like September. I think it was September of 2019. And I was sitting in my bed scrolling through my phone, as you're wont to do pre-pandemic. Mm-hmm. And I was just minding my own business, looking at Facebook or something like that. And it was actually Facebook, yeah, because I scrolled past a Facebook ad. And I was like, cool, Facebook ad, keep scrolling. And then my brain triggered, and I scrolled back up because there was this really epic picture of like a female warrior clad in like plate armor, like standing majestically looking off into the distance. And I was like, okay, stop. I don't care if this is a Facebook ad. I'm going to click it because that art is sick. And so I did. And it took me to fabtcg.com back before it looks like what it looks like now. And I was like, I have no clue what I'm looking at, but I've surmised that it is a trading card game and that the company is putting on a tournament when the game releases in October. And they're giving away like $10,000 or something crazy. And I was like, that is just so audacious. I need to know more about this because they were hosting 2 of them. And the game was being made by a small company in New Zealand of all places. And so I was like, okay, that seems insane. That seems really cool. And so I looked at where they were selling it and I found out it wasn't out yet. And so I put it on my calendar that I was going to go to a local game store and buy some product and make a video about it. And so I did that on the release day. I showed up to a local game store and I said, there's this game that I've heard about called Flesh and Blood. Have you heard of it? And they were like, oh yeah, we've been running events for like 2-3 weeks now. I'm like, what? This game has been like in pre-release mode. And they were just running events, like preparing for the tournament, which was like 3 hours away from where I was. I was like, I could have just come early and picked it up. But anyway, I bought a couple of classic constructed like hero decks, picked up a couple of those and some packs. And I made a really bad video. You can still watch it. It's still on the internet. And I made a really bad video trying to figure out the game as I opened it. And the rest is history. I've been playing it ever since. And I've been enjoying it ever since.
What was the store?
Reaper Game Store.
That is a legendary store in the beginnings of Flesh and Blood, I believe.
Yeah, it's still a legendary store. Yeah,
it is. But if I'm not mistaken, is that Brendan Patrick's former stomping grounds as well?
Yeah, he and I met up there in like December 2019. January 2020, and we were talking about how we both wanted to get together and like record gameplay for the game because the game was still super small in its infancy. I had just made a how to play for the game. Just made a how to play video, and he was mentioning that he really wanted to get some gameplay out there so people could kind of interface with it on a deeper level. And I was like, yeah, let's do that. And then pandemic happened, and then that did not happen.
I wonder whatever happened to that guy, Brendan. Oh, I hope he's doing all right.
Yeah.
So we want to dive into ban list talk. So we know that everyone here was affected by it, but I want to kind of run through them and get some opinions on how we feel about these. So let's talk about bans. First, let's talk Pulse of Eisenloft out in Classic Constructed. I know for me, I've had a problem with Oldham. I think the win rates. I'm on board with LSS and their talk of the win rates. I was concerned about it going into the 3rd week of Nationals that you could basically see Oldham had like roughly 40% of the pie chart, and then it was almost parity with everybody else, and that's right in line with basically every other hero that affected a ban in previous metas before that. Where does Pulse fall here in terms of like cards you may have expected if there were to be a ban? Mr. Armada.
I would never have guessed Pulse would be the thing that they chose to ban, but I think it's a smart one because it's like it is the tickliest of bans. It's like we just mess with you a little bit, which I think is the exact right take for this current meta to a degree. I mean, if that's the only thing that you do, I think that's a pretty good take because of the way that the meta has been shifting from the beginning of national season to the end of national season. And Oldham has sort of started to run into matchups and good players on other decks that are kind of showing up and showing out to some degree. It's still a really good deck, and it's still probably the best deck in the format, but I think Fi is starting to maybe supplant that for me in my mind. But I think if you're trying to bring its advantageous numbers down, which is what LSS is saying, this is a really smart way to try and do that without affecting the deck too much, because doing something like taking Crown of Seeds, even though Crown of Seeds in certain matchups is I don't want to say unnecessary, but less utilized. I think taking away Crown of Seeds is huge still, like from a fundamental perspective, for the deck, because it can do so many things with Crown of Seeds that it obviously can't do without it. So for me, I think that's a good call. I do think you do also need to look back at Fi again, because I think Fi is the premier aggro deck, and I don't think it's particularly close. And that's the interesting thing to me, because if that's the case and people continue to pick up on that as they are already, then we could have a very Fi heavy Worlds.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that is definitely something I think to be concerned about. Adam, Pulse of Eisenloft. Like Stephen had just mentioned, it's kind of tickly. What were you expecting out of the announcement?
I actually wasn't expecting anything whatsoever. I kind of felt like, even though Oldhim is the best deck, like he was like he wasn't like oppressively so at this point. So I kind of felt like if they did nothing, it would have been okay as well. But I get Pulse of Eisenloft. It really reduces. In the article, they talk about reducing things by a percentage point, and it really, I think, it strikes the mark there. It's just gonna, every once in a while, that small little advantage you might gain out of Pulse, you don't get that small little advantage anymore, and I think that's the perfect touch. It's not over the top, like you said. Crown of Seeds would have been far too much.
They have a knack for getting the card that people don't expect onto the list, like Autumn's Touch. I think when it hit, I think everyone in very Michael Hamilton fashion had some very good to pick a card no one was really expecting, and everyone kind of went, "Oh, of course, it makes all the sense in the world." Yet to be seen. We'll see how this goes. I'm still concerned about Oldhim. Stephen, you brought up that Fi is the premier aggro deck, and it's not close. What do you think is the main contributor to its success and possible ascension into problematic?
I think it's just so easy to sit down and string together all of those attacks, and you have so many good synergies that they've built into the game, and built in specifically to the Fi's card pool, that he just kind of, I don't want to say he autopilots, because he doesn't. Like, you still have to be very skilled, especially knowing your matchups and knowing like how to play into Iyslander and deck building for that. But I do think that there's this ability for a Fi player to just slam down their hand on the table and say it's 20 damage, it's 18 damage, like, especially when you have off the backs of like an Art of War. Art of War is just so good in that deck. It feels like playing Art of War in Chain to some degree. Like, it's the same thing in a lot of ways. And if you're feeling like you're playing Chain, then you could be problematic. I'll just put it that way. That deck was good, and this deck is also very good, because it can just go 18, 18, 18. And that's a scary proposition, because it just doesn't care about having to block. And so you have to play disruption into it. Otherwise, it just says, cool, I'll outrace you.
Very true. The Art of War application in Fi, I do think it's the best it's been since Chain. So like you mentioned, that is very that does have some potential to be problematic there. There are some other bans going on there, but it is all in Blitz. Stephen, how do you feel about Blitz format? Are you a fan? Are you a Blitz player primarily?
In general, I love Blitz. Blitz is my favorite format. I actually thoroughly enjoy Blitz in just about every form and facet that I've played it in. Even now, after these bans, I've already been playing Kano post-ban, or post-suspension. We'll put it that way, because it is a suspension. Post-boot suspension, and I'm still enjoying myself, because I like that format. And it's a format that demands that you know what you're doing. Otherwise, you feel like you're getting high rolled, but if you know what you're doing, then you can kind of mitigate some of that to some degree. But yes, there are bans, and the one that stuck out to me is the boots ban.
Yep. Let's talk about the boots. Yeah, Adam is also a Kano aficionado, so I think you guys can commiserate on this particular one. Adam, tell me the impact of the boot span specifically for Kano?
I mean, I think the LSS did a great job summing it up, where it gives you, like, boots would give you, in theory, like, huge theoretical card advantage, where you could get an entire extra card cycle out of your deck without having to survive a turn cycle to be able to use those cards. And I think that's what LSS seems to be trying to put an emphasis on, mitigating insane card advantage in Blitz. And when you put it that way, like, getting Stormstriders makes sense. It really it takes away a lot of Wizard's ability to kind of punish the opponent when they're overextended. And it's going to make Wizard have to work for it that much harder. Icelander and Kano both certainly still have some ability to do things on the opponent's turn and to punish when the opponent's overextended, but it's going to be way harder now. And I think for Blitz that's probably okay, because, like, Kano, if you could set up Wildfire quickly, Kano could chew through 20 life no problem. Like, it wasn't even close. And, like, it was easier to achieve than I think some people realized. So the one thing I'm wondering now, though, is for Wizard, does seeing Wizzy Boots get, or Stormstriders get
Wizzy Boots. Let's hold on.
That's a better name. That's definitely the better name. We're calling it that.
That's what I called them, Wizzy Boots.
Wizzy Boots. All right. Okay. All right. Just had to pull over and
I'm using that now.
Wizzy Boots it is. All right, Adam, continue.
Seeing those go on the suspension list, it makes me wonder if there's room to maybe bring back something like Snapback.
100%.
Maybe we can tinker with Kano's power level and I think Icelander's power level a little bit and go, okay, let's because if having access to, like, Stir and Snapback and the boots and everything else was like a full 10, we've maybe taken Kano down to a 4 or a 5 now, but maybe just Snapback brings it up to a 6 or a 7, and maybe that would be perfect. I think having some ability to combo is a part of Wizard in nature, and, like, right now there's no ability to combo whatsoever, or very, very little ability to combo. So that's kind of where my head goes now, is, like, maybe the next step is giving us back a smaller tool for Wizard, and that might balance it out nicely.
Even you had...
you want to jump in?
Yeah, go ahead. Yep.
Okay, I totally agree. I think if you're, from a fundamental perspective, if you're trying to find a way to balance Wizards that you perceive are heads and tails above the rest of the field, and that's what LSS said that they did, then taking away a very powerful finisher makes sense. And I do think if you're trying to slow the game down, which is what they've said multiple times, they want to slow the format down, they want to slow Blitz down, then doing that from an opponent's perspective is a good benefit. Now, I do agree. I think it hits Kano far harder than it hits Icelander. I think Icelander is still totally playable in the format. I think Kano's not dead, like I joked in my video, that I posted when it came out. The hero's not actually dead. I do think you can still play him, but I think now, because you don't have the ease of access of comboing off in the traditional Wildfire sense, I think you nailed it on the head. You do have to work for it. And in doing so, the only real way that you can play Kano is by going just massive combo turns back to back to back. Basically just drawing blues or blues and yellows, and then using things like Cindering Foresight to set the top, and then digging through your deck, and then hitting just tomes, and then hitting sonic booms into lavas, into just all these random things that you kind of have to combo into and try to set up. So you have to work far harder for it, but you can get there. I've been playing it on Talishar for the past, I don't know, maybe 5 hours or so. And it's like middling. It's like I don't know, 6 and 6 or something like that. Maybe 5 and 7. But you can kind of find your way through that, depending on the matchup. But I do think what this does is it 100% takes the power level of both Icelander and Kano and knocks it down to what is perhaps a much more manageable level, especially more palatable for opponents to play into. And if that's what their goal is, then it works. I mean, it totally does. And I'm not as heartbroken as I liked to play it up in the video, because these heroes are still playable and they are still good, but they're definitely not what they were pre-suspension of Stormstriders, because Icelander pre-Stormstrider suspension, really scary in that format. Really scary.
I used to think about Kano in Blitz as I am not a Wizard player, but I feel pretty comfortable in the Wizard matchup, and I've always approached that matchup in Blitz as a 2-turn game, right? 2-turn on turn 2, someone's dying. Either I've been able to hold back a blue and stop the combo and attack enough to deal lethal and protect myself, or I am forced to overextend and you hit Wildfire, you hit whatever it is that needs to be hit. What turn would you say? Like, does Kano have a clock right now on it? Is it approached as a like a 3-turn deck, a 4-turn deck, or an X-turn deck at this point?
Pre or post suspension?
Post.
The way I've been playing it, it's like a 3-turn game. It's like a 3 to 4-turn game. And so that means you can run Tunic a little bit more comfortably. It depends on the matchup too. I think that's the really big thing, because like if you sit down and you're playing, like I was playing it against a chain, and I incorrectly subbed in Spellfire Cloak, and that game went 4 turns, and the chain player ended up winning. And I had the opportunity to Arsenal and then play from Arsenal a Tome of Fiendal with the Tunic resource, but I ran the wrong Tunic. I ran the Spellfire Cloak. And so you can now play that setup, I think, a little bit differently. But if you're playing against Dash, you're dead in like 2.5 turns. So it's like, well, I don't know. It really depends on against the matchup that you're playing in.
Dash is getting particularly scary in both formats right now. I think people are finally tuning Dash up here into A minus tier right now. Not quite S tier for me. But continuing on to the bands, the more band talk. This one affects me. Bloodsheath Skeleton getting the ban. I'm a Briar guy through and through. I've been on 5 recently, but people who listen to the channel and the pod know that Briar's one of my first loves. And in CC, it was really hurt. Like that 2-block really sucked to lose, especially around Pro Tour New Jersey time, where the ability to stop Herald of Erudition was just almost moot at that point, because you only had Tunic or Iron Weave at that. And you basically were set up to block 5 damage. So if they came in with the cheeky stuff, the Art of Wars or the lunging presses, FU Dozer for the lunging press tech, but losing that ability to block for 2, and obviously Viserai really abused that. But Briar needed the armor; it doesn't have it anymore. And now in Blitz, it had the armor and didn't have Sonata, and now LSS has swapped that out, where Skeleton is now out and Sonata is in. So Briar's ability to pivot using equipment is gone, and it is now back to relying on the variants of Sonata pulls. Adam can attest. I am the reason variance exists, and RNG is not in my favor. So I personally whiff on every Sonata I'll ever play. It doesn't matter how much I pitch into it. It is a miss. So having that card back is a down is a thumbs down for this guy here. But what are our thoughts on Skeleton getting the axe and Sonata back in?
I don't mind it either way. I think for me, Skeleton going is just as much about trying to curb the ability of just like creating crazy amounts of rune chants and then getting value off of them, a la something like a Heart and Cross strap, which just gets you a bunch of value, versus, you know, like whether or not it's one or the other. I personally don't ever see myself pitching into Sonata anymore. I think it's more of a variance card that you kind of play as a free Tome of the Arknight now. I mean, it's been that since they parted the two. When the two were split apart, it's like they cut them down the middle, and now that Skeleton and Sonata are separated, Sonata is just like this variance piece that if you hit, you get some benefit on, but you can't really play into too terribly much. So for me, it's like they took out a 2-block equipment that was honestly pretty great and had some good situational like play, and they swapped in a piece that you can just kind of throw in the deck for extra non-attack stuff. So for me, it's like it's like eh.
That's fair. That's fair. I'm not a huge fan of Briar's matchup into Icelander right now, and I think that's one of the big things that's really knocked it down. Adam, you are the opposite of me and hit all your tomes and sonatas. What is your how do you feel about it coming back into Blitz?
I'm honestly in Blitz. I'm mad about Sonata being there. Like Steven said, you're rarely pitching into it, and every once in a while it kind of essentially just if you're not pitching into it, at best it can replace itself. So it lets you dig into your deck a little bit, and that's kind of nice. Sometimes it'll whiff, sometimes it'll hit, but yeah, I'm mad about it.
Fair. You can be mad about it. I was one to pitch into it a lot. I run Channel Mount Heroic in both formats. So blue heavy and trying to Sonata for X's 3. But hitting 1. That's the feels bad moment there. Last but not least, Mask of Pouncing Lynx. Very fun in Phi, necessary arguably in Benji. And now getting the axe, LSS's justification is that it basically equaled 5 damage for free on demand, and that equaled a quarter of your opponent's life, and that's too good. They're likely, especially on Phi, it enabled an OTK-ish strategy where even on a 4-card hand, going second, especially if you had Belittle and Art of War stacked on top of one another here, you created these monster chains, and if they let you hit enough, you get Assault the Wound, and if you felt less comfortable about Assault the Wound getting more value, you got Lava Burst. But either way, you were attacking for 20 plus in a given turn. But now that is gone. It obvious for Phi. Did Benji really deserve this, though? Adam?
Yeah, Benji was already struggling as it was, so I guess this really does kind of just put the nail in the coffin for Benji.
It got that sweet justification, specialization, and everything. It lasted like, what was it? 6 months. 6 months of glory for Benji.
Yeah, I remember when Benji kind of like when everything kind of got teased for Benji there, and we thought Benji was going to be real problematic for a hot minute, and then everybody was just like, oh wait a minute, you just run the equipment that blocks, and crisis averted.
Yeah, yep. Protect yourself against the razor. Call it a day. Steven, we were talking about this a little before we started recording. Still good though. All right, Mask of Momentum is now probably the default. I have seen in some instances in CC, very niche, running Crown of Providence instead of Mask of Pouncing Lynx. Do you see something like that slotting into Phi's inventory in Blitz?
Yeah, you could throw it in there just because you have the spots, but I think you just windmill slam the Mask of Momentum onto the table every time you start the matchup. I think it's actually an incredibly good ban for Well, specifically for Fi, I think Benji died for the sins of Fi because Fi is ridiculous. So the thing about that, I mean, they spelled it out perfectly, is that basically your one tutor effect that's on the table from the beginning of the game fetches you lethal, which is funny because they also suspended legendary boots that do the same thing for 2 heroes, like that fetch you lethal basically. Except this one goes and gets a card from your deck that I guess your opponent can know about, and the legendary boots can be played on your opponent's turn. So it is different fundamentally, but like both, there's parallels there, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, it's a big change, but it doesn't like completely kill the deck, which is kind of the change that you want, right? You want a change that brings it in line to a specific power level and still allows you to play that hero. And I think that the hero is still really good in Blitz, but it doesn't completely stop you from playing it. And that's why I think that's a really powerful change, because you also have this beautiful piece of equipment that has existed since the dawn of the game that already kind of does great things. And so you just tweak the deck a little bit and then you just run it out there, and you're necessarily not pushing like 6 extra damage on any given turn to win the game, but you are threatening more card draw, which could basically be the same thing, but your opponent gets more counterplay into it. So that's why it's a really good change from LSS. I think that is quite wise, even though it does completely slay Benji.
Poor Benji. As a whole, now post suspension, there was previously there had, like you had mentioned, complaints about Blitz being high variance and high rolly, and again, as you had mentioned, maybe they're just bad. But
that's really what it is. It's that.
Is Blitz where it needs to be right now with these bans in place? Do you think it is a healthier, happier environment for everybody?
No, not for everybody. No, if you play Kano, then the world is on fire and you have no ability to play the game. If you play Benji, then you've immediately just torn your Benji to shreds and you've moved on. No, so it's not better for everybody, but by and large, it's trying to pull heroes that are way too pushed back down. And I think doing that with Fi and then doing that with Icelander, I don't know if there's enough people that have actually played Icelander in Blitz. Understand this. Icelander is incredibly good in Blitz for a lot of different reasons. The deck is really good, but just by saying that sentence, it's hard to like encapsulate everything, because the deck is really good means every single variant of Icelander is really good, and you don't know what you're sitting down to play, and so you can't tech against it, and then you just die to something. And so trying to pull its like power down is very wise if you want a more varied meta game. So if you want more people playing like Warriors, for example, then pulling Icelander, who has great disruption, down is really good. Why Kano has to die for it, I understand, because Kano is probably the most unfun hero to lose to, because you lose on your own turn every single game.
It's terrible. It is terrible.
Right. But you know what? It's way harder to play than most people can handle, and it doesn't perform as well as everybody would want. But you remember the games you lose to Kano because you presented lethal and still died. And so it's for that reason why I think people find that hero unfun to play into. Not necessarily because he's incredibly good. He is good, don't get me wrong. And in the hands of the correct pilot, he can be very good. But I don't think he's ever going to be the best deck in the format again, like he was probably in Crucible of Wartime.
What is right now best deck
in the format? So it's a good question, because if Aura Prism catches on like it might, then you may just go Aura Prism is slightly favored into Oldhim. But Oldhim and Fi are probably the top 2 decks. And if Fi can keep pushing damage even though you don't have Mask, then Fi might edge it out, but probably Oldhim. I would say Oldhim. And I think Icelander is still in the mix, but I don't think it's necessarily as good as the other 2.
All right. Steven, you just wrapped up casting U.S. Nationals. You have been on just about every U.S. event stream to date. You are
a parent, and a teacher, in addition to a content creator and a caster. I want to know about the juggling act. How do you keep all of these balls moving without dropping them?
I just don't sleep. I think you just stop sleeping in general.
Yeah.
And you just pretend. I put on a lot of makeup. That's why I look so youthful still. No, really what it is, and this is very truthful, is I am very judicious now with my time. I don't watch a lot of TV. I don't have hobbies. My hobbies are making videos and commentating and playing Flesh and Blood and other card games as well. Like that is my hobby. So like if people, and I've had this happen too, people will like send me a message. They'll be like, "Hey, can you like talk me through your daily routine, or can you like give me some like tips on how you are able to kind of juggle everything?" I just tell them I wake up, I do the things that I got to get done, and then when it's time to kind of like decompress, I don't go and decompress in the traditional sense. I have found enjoyment in making content, and that is my form of decompression. So for me, that's kind of how I juggle it all. I spend time with my family. Most often I go to work, I come back, and then when it's time to like watch Netflix, I don't do that. And I instead come here and I sit in front of my computer and I record, and then I hope people watch it after doing so.
Adam, do you recall, I'm starting to get some similar vibes from like the best people in Flesh and Blood, because I had asked a similar question to Tarak Patel. I believe the first interview that we did with him, not the second. We interviewed Tarak Patel here a lot here on the Combat Chain. You can check out our previous episodes with him on our YouTube channel. But his thing was time management as well, and now we're hearing it again. I'm beginning to dissect how we get good at the stuff that we need to get good at here.
I mean, that's what it takes. I mean, no matter what you want to get good at, it really just takes choosing that over the myriad of distractions that we all have at our disposal, right at our fingertips, and oftentimes within our fingertips in a phone. It's so easy to just, try to disassociate for a bit. And there's nothing wrong with that if that's like what you do, because I do that from time to time. But I pulled away from that because I specifically wanted to, make videos. And I was sick and tired. And this is personal for me. I was sick and tired of liking an idea for something, thinking it was really cool, and then starting said idea and then getting like a dog seeing another car and chasing that one. And like, oh, I'm going to go to that idea. Or, hey, this one got too hard, so I'm not going to stick with it, and I'm just going to do something else. And so I got sick of that for myself. And so I started this YouTube channel, and I told myself that I was just going to keep going until I couldn't keep going anymore. And I guess we've been going for like 7 years. So I guess I'm successful in that sense. Haven't stopped yet.
That is very successful. And we'll talk more about it in a little bit. But 10,000 subscribers just crossed that Rubicon. That is a huge number and nothing to sneeze at. So congratulations on 10,000. I want to focus on casting here. Where does casting fall in your priority list of what we just talked about? Your hobby is all of this. Where does casting fall in that hierarchy?
So before I did the first Flesh and Blood casting experience, I basically started my YouTube channel doing commentary over gameplay. And then I just did that a bunch. And then I did commentary for a world championship of a game called Dice Masters in 2019. This was like a month maybe before Flesh and Blood released. And that was an incredible experience. And I started to really fall in love with the idea of just doing full on like commentating. And then when I was approached to do commentary for the calling in Vegas, the first calling ever, I guess it was, wasn't it? The first real calling, like after the two that happened in the US and the one that kind of fired in New Zealand.
Yes,
just fell in love with it again.
Apologies to Colin Kaiser, who won one of those irrelevant callings in 2019 and is now two-time calling champion.
They were not They were not irrelevant, but they were definitely smaller than they are now, right?
Yes, definitely. No, he's got like, I believe New Jersey was like the first one ever, or like the super first one, and then his latest one, no coverage at all. So he's just tripping, he's just hitting rakes with each of these events that he's going to. I want to pick your brain a little bit about this job here. How it's not the same company that puts together each streamed event, right? There's Channel Fireball, there's Star City Games. LSS is like the parent company. How does it work going to each one of the? Are you an LSS contractor? Or how does this? You don't have to get into the super nitty gritty here, but how does it work? How is the continuity of the casting team maintained throughout all these different events?
Yeah, so from what I can tell, and I can't speak to it, I'm sure there's people that can speak to it on a deeper level. From what I can tell, LSS is sort of the go-to point for these companies that they contract out. So they contract out like a Channel Fireball or an SCG. And it is those companies that hire like commentators. And I believe, I don't quite know this for sure, but I believe LSS can like recommend commentary teams and things like that, or commentators in general, for who they would like to see. And then those companies can go and approach those people for coverage purposes. And I think it's really from that point where everything else stems off. So the company will reach out and then set up commentating duties and talk about schedules and get a team together and then just go from there. That's from what I can tell from where I sit. I believe that's kind of the general gist of how it functions.
Now, you had mentioned that you started your channel doing gameplay commentary on your own accord. Now that you are in front of a camera doing this for LSS on these premiere events, do you undergo any kind of specific? Do you train yourself for these? Do you practice your voice? Do you practice your knowledge? What goes into getting ready for one of these events?
Oh yeah, I 100% train for commentary. I don't know if everybody does, but I just feel like if I do, I feel a lot more capable into just about anything that they throw at me, or the players throw at us. So I will sit down and I will go through I'll play a bunch of games, like as many games as I can possibly get my hands on in between making videos. But then when I am not sitting down and actively making a video, and when I have like free time and I'm not, spending time with my kids or my wife, that sort of thing, I will just sit down and watch gameplay on gameplay, and I will digest videos, and I will make my own matchup lists into specific matchups, and like hero into this hero, what like overall game plan, what's their game plan. I will just sit down and grind that info out to the best of my own knowledge. And if I'm off on something, at least I tried, and at least I have some semblance of an opinion in the matchup. But I will do that for like every hero that I possibly can, and every hero that I think is going to be heavily featured in the meta. And so, yes, I sit down and I straight up do all of that. No, I don't memorize the cards, but I kind of already have them all memorized as we open the new sets and as they go. So for the most part, I have a pretty decent back knowledge of any card that pops up. Weirdly enough, not including Wounded Bull, because I forgot Wounded Bull did the effect that it was. I misremembered Wounded Bull for the other like Raging Onslaught, I think it was the blank text one. I swapped them in my head, but Wounded Bull, that was a good pick.
Yeah, I don't think anyone saw that coming, nor recalled the text when it was initially played. That's for sure.
You know what's interesting though about that is Michael Hamilton was very open about the whole Wounded Bull concept in Icelander in the Manor episode leading up to US Nats. Like, he was like straight up, he was just like, yeah, I'm playing Icelander, but I'm running Wounded Bull in it, and here's the whole idea behind it. Like, And it's funny because I didn't even listen to that episode until after everyone had been shocked by this.
It's just
this
staring at us in the face the whole time.
But he was
called his shots.
He was so funny. He was just like, he was so open about it, and I think that's funny that for how open he was about it, that it was still as much of a surprise as it was to the global community.
The Manorcast, up and coming podcast with new friend of the channel, Michael Hamilton and Roger Bodie. Very informative. It is super. Michael Hamilton has one of the greatest minds for this game. Tarek is another one. Yuki is another one. But Michael's understanding and just the way that he brought out some of the concepts that I had asked him about last week was just nuts. He has, I posted it on the Combat Chain Twitter, the most concise explanation of how top players mitigate variance and continue to win in this game that I have heard yet from anybody trying to explain that. So if you guys want to see that, go on to the Combat Chain Twitter and see that, and check out the last episode.
I'm going right now to look at that. Here I am. I'm looking at it now.
It is. He talks about decision points and how if you improve your ability to make decision points, if you're making 200 decisions in a game, and you make 110 decision points correctly, and your opponent makes 100 decision points correctly, you have increased your. It may seem like you've only gotten 5% of value like increased, but those decision points over time give you enough of a small edge with each one that your probability of winning just is much greater there. So you get those top players who know how to make those individual decision points, and Pablo Pintor makes 120 correct decision points, and his opponents might average 115 correct decision points, and that's how you get to be one of the best players in the world. And he does go into much more sideboard matchups are important and things like that. But in terms of like the thought process, that was chef's kiss. That was intellect, adult entertainment for myself when he was saying that. All right, that is I went way off the rails. I want to pull us back in because I want to talk to you, continuing about your casting experiences here. You are like a world traveler at this point. When you go to these events, are you more of a hermit? You're in the convention center, you rest, you go back to the room, you wake up and do it all over again, or do you like to explore?
Oh, I'm definitely a hermit. I'm a hermit in general. I mean, I told you earlier that I don't do all those fun things that people do, and instead sit in front of a computer and make videos talking at a camera. So yeah, I describe myself as a hermit. Yeah, that's me.
Do you like to? How about food when you go? Do you try to get something good, or you just try to get something familiar?
Or local, I should say. I try to get something that can sustain me for the long commentary stretches that we go for. Because honestly, like, bless you.
Thank you.
Nailed that one. Leave that in. Please, God, leave that in. That was so perfect. Because honestly, loudest sneeze. That's how I feel. No, yeah, because honestly, like the stretches of just going are so like lengthy that you just find something, you eat it, and then you keep going. And then by the end of the day, you're just wiped. And so for me, I would love to just like get with a few friends, go grab something, simple, eat it, and then just go crash in the hotel room.
That is fair. That does transition to us to our first community question. Brought to you by Flake. You may have heard of him, Mr. Matt DeMarco.
I love that guy. That guy's great.
He's a nice guy. He asks, honey mustard or barbecue?
Ooh, honey mustard. I am more of a fan of honey mustard than barbecue, but not terribly Not terribly over one or the other. I'll take buffalo sauce or hot sauce over both.
Ooh, yeah.
Ooh, okay. All right. Fair enough. What does the hot sauce go on the most? What's your favorite?
Put it on anything. You can put hot sauce on anything. Why would you not? And like maybe not ice cream. That'd be weird.
That is. It's exotic, is what it is. It might not be societally correct, but someone's having it and enjoying it.
They had some really sick. I don't know if you got it over at Charlotte, but in the U.S. Nats this couple weekends ago, they had some really sick chicken tenders baskets with like the fries. Jam some hot sauce mixed with ketchup in that. That was pretty good.
I did get the chicken tenders. I regretted getting the chicken tenders, but
didn't sit well with you.
My body did not agree with that decision. I'll just put it that way. Worlds is coming up.
Mm-hmm.
You are not part of the casting team for Worlds, as far as I've seen in the pictures. Is that an accurate statement?
Yeah, that's correct.
Were you offered the spot, or did you refuse it? Why aren't you casting Worlds, Mr.
No,
Armada?
they did not. They didn't offer me the spot.
Sons of bitches.
Hey man, it is what it is.
There's drama everywhere Brendan Patrick comes. I can't wait for him to come on, because I am going to ask him a lot of fiery questions. But he is the newest member of the casting team. You have obviously had a chance in previous times to interact with Mr. Patrick? You talked about your experience close to Reaper. What is your thoughts on him coming onto the casting team, into the casting world here?
I love Brendan. I think Brendan's awesome. He's a good friend of mine. I consider him a friend. He probably looks at me and he's like, "Oh yeah, hey, there's that guy." But no, I think he's a good friend. I think he's great. I've known Brendan since before the game exploded the first time, and the game exploded like 3 times in like 5 months.
Yeah.
And we both loved the game, and he's a great dude. And as far as casting is concerned, and I've been saying this since literally since Calling Vegas, the first one, he is one of the best commentators that could be hired for any gig. Like, he's a fantastic commentator. He does a really good job. He's very knowledgeable, and I think he's a slam dunk pick. Like, I was actively trying to get them to, like, consider him just straight up for gigs before, because he's really good. If you didn't know, during the pandemic, he would run Discord tournaments, and he would just put them on stream and commentate them, and he was good at it. It was more casual in nature, but he crushed it, and he's gonna do really well. I think he's gonna do a great job.
Go ahead.
I was gonna just I have very fond memories of the Fab Discord gauntlet that him and it was mostly him and he had a couple people jump in with him, but mostly him and Dante Delfico, and there was some good competition in that, and it was always fun to go back and watch the streams if you ended up on stream. No, I the Fighters Guild, they've done a decent job of kind of replacing the gauntlet as like that one premier online like heavily competitive event, but yeah, Discord Gauntlet, they did it good. They did it very good.
100% agree. And I think it's going to be really fun to watch the stuff. I am personally going, and I will probably just be playing in like a bunch of events. But I am going to go back to the hotel and put on the stream, because the stream quality is going to be off the charts. I can only imagine that they're just going to keep going from strength to strength when it comes to just general quality and performance that they put on.
You had talked about you just mentioned now that you're going there to play. Great spot for our next community question from Capolo, who has his own YouTube channel and is a friend of the pod. He asks, you are known for your content creation and commentary. What are your competitive aspirations? Do you want to win a calling or play in a Pro Tour?
My competitive aspirations are 0. And the reason that they are 0 is because if I if I had the opportunity to sit down and like prepare the way that I would prepare, that I would want to prepare, and like the way that I know to prepare, I would want, if I wanted to play in like a major event, I would want to commit myself to the testing and the practice of said event. And in doing so, I'd have to stop making videos at the same clip that I'm currently making videos, and I would have to stop like other collaborations that I would currently, be doing. And I don't know if I want to make that sacrifice. Even though I do want, like, the idea of playing in those events is great, but I think it's important to understand that like committing to something like that is not just like, cool, I'll just show up and play. At least it isn't for me. Like there's work that goes into it that means that I have to now be judicious with my time in different ways. And so it's all about weighing opportunity costs and like time costs,
Mm-hmm. Nope, I feel that to my bones. We just got done with a huge, basically a 9-month-long grind test session that now that I'm not going to Worlds, have stopped completely. And my wife and kids are much happier that I am putting the cards down for a little bit. Still doing content though, because we're right here. You are a very good Flesh and Blood player in your own right. I have had the opportunity a couple times in your server to play you. Who wins in a 4-man CC tournament? Flake, Tannen Grace, Brian Gottlieb, and you.
Oh my God, this is not even close. Like, this is in no way, shape, or form is this even close. Brian Gottlieb absolutely clowns all of us, probably all at the same time. And it's not even relatively that close. He will literally wipe the floor with all of us. And I don't mean that as a knock on my ability to play or Tannen's or Flake's. The man is a dev. He just plays the game all the time. He will destroy everyone if he wanted to. That's how I feel about it.
That's right. I know recently he worked with LSS on Flesh and Blood, actual card design. That is the part I did not.
He works as like an S, right? He's still working with them.
That I did not know. I honestly don't know a ton about Brian Gottlieb, other than he is one of your fellow quality casters.
He's a prolific Magic pro player from years past. He designed cards. I believe he designed cards in Magic the Gathering. And he's doing the same in Flesh and Blood, and currently just like absolutely just plays the game at a crazy clip, because like that's what he does. It's his job.
Makes all the sense in the world why he would kick the crap out of everybody. All right.
Yeah, that's the thing. People need to understand. They need to recognize the man's legit.
You heard it here. Gottlieb's the real deal. I want to take off the casting hat and put on your content creation hat now. We mentioned before, but you reached the 10,000 subscriber milestone. Talk a little bit about getting to that moment, how you celebrated, and I know you released some merch for it. And kind of what is, now that you've reached 10K, what's next? What's next for the channel here?
So leading up to the 10K like point where we reached, it started off being like, wow, this may actually happen. We could actually reach that point. And then as it became more of an eventuality and less of a like possibility, I was like, wow, this is incredibly exciting. I'm super excited to see, when it happens, and I want to try and celebrate in some big way. And then it took a little longer, and then it took a little longer, and I started to get anxious. And I was like, at some point, it actually turned to like, there's this moment of like, okay, if we can just get this number to go slightly higher to another number, and eventually it goes to another digit, then we can move past that and do something like, I don't know, have a different goal and milestone. And eventually it ticked all the way up, and we stopped and we celebrated. And as I was thinking about this leading up to that moment, I was like, eventually the number just becomes another number, and does it really matter in the long run of what that number actually says? Because when it comes down to it, I feel like I'm just going to keep doing this, whether the number goes up or down, and just like make things that I enjoy. And I feel like a lot more people can take that mentality wherever they sit and enjoy their experience more if they make content creation. And so I started to switch into that mode of like, hey, the number's just going to do what the number does. If people want to click it and make the number go up, that's cool. And eventually we hit 10K, and I celebrated on a stream, and I had some really cool art commissioned with like the main character that I had this flesh and blood artist design, and the art is incredible. And so I put it onto playmats and sleeves, and I got it out to people that really wanted it to celebrate along with, and it was really cool. I enjoyed
it. You had so you just mentioned that perhaps the next milestone doesn't necessarily matter. Do you have, like, is there still like a goal in the back of your mind that's kind of niggling at you, like 15K, 13.5? Is there a number that is the next big one for you?
I don't think there's a number there anymore. I think when I saw that 10K could be achieved, that was the end goal as far as numbers were concerned. Because now the number goes up, and I feel like I don't have as much. Like I can't picture 11,000 versus 10,000. You know what I mean? Yep. That's a weird switch, one versus the other. And so because I can't picture it, like it doesn't have as much impact to me. But there's like other sort of ancillary milestones that I think would have more impact. Like I don't know, a video getting a ton of views because people really enjoyed it. Like that would be something that I would aim for. Is like I want to make something that people like, oh, just go crazy over. And I don't know what Dynasty spoilers we're going to have rolling out here, but maybe I can make a really cool Dynasty spoiler video that has people get super, super amped up. And that can be my next big goal.
Well, we'll be watching them because we won't be making one. Damn you, Yuli!
Come along for the ride. That would be the play right there.
We're gonna enjoy Dynasty spoiler season right up to the very end. Your videos are of outstanding quality, I must say.
Thank
you. Are you content with where you are right now in terms of your video production rate, the quality of the video? Is there any aspiration to scale up the operation, so to speak?
No, I'm not content with it. I'm not consistent as far as like uploading. At least I'm not as consistent as I would like it to be. I look at things and I go, man, if I had a few extra minutes or an hour, I could sit down and make that thing look better. Or I could buy like a different camera, like an upgrade camera. And then I sit there and I agonize whether or not I should use my, money wisely on that camera, or if it's not enough of a benefit that it doesn't actually matter. Yeah, no, I am always conflicted about just the general production quality of the videos. It's like, should I be taking more time to like edit these videos? Should I try to keep a really decent pace? I think there's when you really get into the nitty gritty of like releasing content, there's a lot of different ways that you can go about it, which is the interesting thing, because there's not a wrong answer. There's not a right answer. There's just the answer that works for your audience. And so it takes a lot of like understanding what your audience wants and like what they like and what they respond to, and then leaning into that. And then also trying to keep it original or fresh for you. And so I'm not happy at any point, really. And I'm not sure I should be or will be. I think it's probably good to not be too content with everything, because then you just keep trying stuff, and that's good.
And
yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and I think like when you can remain I'm trying to think of the right way to sound this, because remain unhappy isn't the right way to describe it, but if you can
like never satisfied, right?
Never satisfied. That keeps, that drives away the complacency and causes you to always strive to just do something better and always strive for something. So I respect that. I feel that. I think that kind of goes into what Pat and I are always trying to do here as well.
The consistency thing is terrifying. It's so hard.
Oh,
We just put our last episode of the podcast was released. Was it yesterday?
Yesterday.
I believe it was. It was yesterday, which was a little late, which was partly my fault because I gave him 100 hours of just ramble to edit down. But then we're talking to you. We got to keep that schedule. So we're behind a little bit, but now we got to keep up. And now the next one, I have our next guest next week, which we'll talk about at the very end here, already messaging me wondering about scheduling, and I'm trying not to have a panic attack while conducting an interview. So I could commend the video portion, especially the edit. He handles the audio. I usually handle on the video side of things, but if you notice, there's very little video that comes up because it's that you talk about that, that balance and judicious time. Kids are editing is really where I come down to. So if I get the free time, hey.
Yep.
Along with your channel and the 10,000 subscribers, you have a pretty large and thriving Discord community. Breezy is one of our longtime friends here, even before content. Parker is one of my favorite playing buddies online on the main Discord, and
he's a great dude.
He really is. He's really great. He has been on. We shot a special video interview with him a little while ago, and that came out really nicely. But I want you to talk about your thriving Discord community and what it takes to kind of cultivate that and bring it to where it is now, and some of the things that you're doing on the server.
As far as cultivating it, I just made a Discord and then I posted things into it, and then I tried to think about what I would want to engage into from an authentic perspective. Like, I mean, there's lots of things that you can do with Discord, but the I don't know. When I think about it, like the driving force of a Discord is like interaction between two people or between like a group of people and just like talking about things and talking about like yourself on a deeper level than just, about like a game or something like that. And so for me, I really enjoy like some of those weird ancillary channels that you can find in Discords, like like a daily question where someone can literally just tell about something about themselves. Like let's see, what was today's daily question? I don't know if I did it today. In my Discord, I have a literal spot that says question of the day, and the question was, what's something that most people consider to be a luxury but you don't think you could live without? I'll ask both of you so that we can learn about each other. What's something that most people consider a luxury that you couldn't live without?
I have a very pretentious answer.
Okay, you go first.
I have this is I have a cleaning service that comes once every 2 weeks. It is relatively expensive, and I would rather not eat or drink coffee if it came down to it than stop them from coming. Just the peace of mind that comes. I live in a very large house through means that are I'm renting it out. I am not extraordinarily wealthy and successful. I am just an average guy. I have a job. I'm full-time employed, but it is a large space. I have my kids are very busy and chaotic people, and my wife does an amazing job of making sure that they are alive on a full-time basis and wherever they need to go. So it is a lot to ask of one person or even two people to maintain such a place. So the Venusa, thank you very much for cleaning our house every 2 weeks. You don't listen at all, so I can just shout you out. But that is it is a luxury. I'm very fortunate to be able to hire them, but I will let them go for my cold dead corpse. So that is
Adam, what about you?
My answer.
The best thing I can think of off the top of my head, and I I feel like this answer is so lame compared to Pat's. Like, that's actually a really good answer of something luxurious for most people. When I first when Skirmish Season 1 went online, and that's kind of when I really got into Flesh and Blood, I recognized that I needed to get a webcam and some sort of headset. And at the time, I did not own AirPods. And I decided this would be my excuse to buy myself a pair of AirPods. And I remember prior to that thinking AirPods were like a gimmick and whatever. And ever since I got them, I am so in love with them, and I couldn't imagine not having AirPods. Like, they're so convenient. Like, just anywhere I am, I just pop it in. I can have a phone call with anyone. They sound great. When they're not charged, like I'll forget to charge them, and then like I have this like moment of panic. Like usually what happens is like I'll have like we're about to sit down to do the podcast, and I need to pop in my AirPod, and it's like, oh crap, I forgot to charge it, and now I'm panicking trying to figure out how I can record the podcast and hear Pat and everything. So that's my answer, is that's the luxury I don't think I could live without at this point, is my AirPods.
AirPods is a good one. My AirPods broke, and I did not realize it was one of the only Apple products, which I have many. I have the watch, but it turns out my AirPods were the only ones I did not put the Apple Care on. So when they broke, that was it. I could not go to an Apple store and get them repaired. I just had to replace them. So that was a very tragic. Again, very middle class tragedy happening there. My AirPods broke, and I had to get other portable, rechargeable headphones. But I understand how you feel about them. Yeah, for sure.
Mine's avocado toast.
Oh, that's a good one too.
No, I'm just kidding. I don't need
all right, Brady.
No,
no, Brady's in some shit right now. We don't want to be following his lead anymore.
No, mine is, let's see, YouTube Premium subscription. Don't have to watch ads. Holy crap, it's the best. That's a luxury item that is so worth it. Man. So here's the beauty of this in Discord is I have these people that I interact with that I consider my friends, and one of them is named Smokeopotamus, and I love Smokeopotamus. He's a Discord mod in my server now, and his answer: a vent that blows hot air in his bathroom. Like, that's just what he decided. And I like that. I love that answer. And now I know something deeper about him, that he actually uses the middle switch that no one touches in their bathroom. Go figure. Good for him.
I don't even have a middle switch in my bathroom. That's
what a luxury item he has. Right?
There's a twofer right there. The middle switch and the
vent tube. It's amazing. But anyway, that's what I like about Discord. So I tried to lean into the idea that people connect like authentically. So there's a couple other fun ones with like you just share like your dog and stuff like that, your food, and just like having conversations. I really like having conversations on Discord. So it's a lot of just like conversing with friends, and I think that's what I care about as far as Discord's concerned.
Very nice. I've always been a big fan of the tournaments and such that go around, but it's mostly because I like to play with the guys that hang around there. TCG Talk is on there a lot. Breezy. You actually picked up some pieces from some fallen Flesh and Blood content comrades that were running tournaments on their Discord, but no longer choose to endorse such. And I know there's some refugees that floated upon your Discord for that as well. So it is a thriving competitive community as well.
We got to run more events. I think that's the big thing.
Yeah, you know what? Well, there was I used to have to pick between either yours or an Armory that was running on Thursday nights, and I had to prioritize the XP. So I usually went to the Armory, but it doesn't really happen that often anymore. So if you fired them off, hey, there's a lot more opportunity out there to play on Thursday nights.
I think we need to run like weird fun tournaments too. I think that's what we're going to do. We're going to run some weird stuff just so that people can be more casual in the game.
Absolutely. Lore. I thought I heard, I'll be fully transparent. I believe I heard that you are a lore nut when it comes to Flesh and Blood, but I'm not sure if I had a fever dream or if I actually heard that.
Yeah, I like the lore. I love lore. The lore in this game is fantastic. I think it's worth digging into. If you haven't already, you should definitely do it.
Where would you like it to be? Is it like, it feels like it's not entirely fleshed out, right? It seems like they've got a foundation for just about everything, and it does seem like they're beginning that. All the heroes basically kind of have been roughly identified. Their stories are starting to be told, their identities in the narrative, and now it seems like they're on the very beginnings of a convergence. The Morlock Hill story was, for me, like riveting when that came up. The Shadow Realm is coming up, right? There's an unidentified hero with tentacles. Minerva is taken to Rinthia, starts to go Super Saiyan. Bolton is around the corner. We know that Katsu is around. Where do you have any inside information about where we're going here? What is going to be happening in the story?
Oh no, inside information from LSS. I have nothing. But all I know is that I'm just going to keep reading what they put out there and piecing it together, because it is. I think they're doing this the exact right way. I think this idea of giving you all these ancillary characters that don't necessarily connect, but then weaving their stories together slowly but surely is incredibly fascinating. And yes, I would like them to go a little faster so that we can kind of see this come to fruition, but you have to line it up with sets that you can release. Yeah. And so I think they're doing a really cool thing with Dynasty, hopefully that involves a lot of the lore. And from what I can tell, they're going to lean heavy into it. That's kind of what they mentioned in some the James White interviews, that the lore is going to be very central. I really hope that's the case, and I want to see how they execute that, because if so, I think that's going to be a huge selling point for people who are into D&D and stuff like that.
I agree. I am interested to see how closely they tie in some of the things. I bring up Morlock Hill. It was a riveting thing, but it felt like nothing to do with what was going on coming up to Uprising and into Dynasty at the time, unless it does. And it would be, I would be freaking out if we see even a hint of the light shadow relationship inserted just a little bit into Dynasty to kind of get that convergence that I had mentioned going.
Well, it was the Morlock Hill storyline that at the very end, the two heroes propose that they go and try to ask for help from other regions and from other kingdoms. And so it is because of that they send Shiana to Volcor to appease, or to try and talk to and convince the Emperor that the Emperor should rally the Drakai and go and fight against the Demonastery. So it does tie in pretty directly, and it also technically ties into Icelander's storyline. I made a video on Icelander and her place within this story thus far. And Shiana enters into that story and helps Icelander kind of make her way through Ashvahan, the capital city, and into this building that is basically just a giant library for the arcane arts, where she's trying to study and master her elemental and arcane abilities. So I think it fits nicely. I think that really Morlock Hill is the jumping off point for why we get to Uprising, and why Uprising kind of connects to the larger storyline thus far. And I do think it's going to connect even more depending on how they take the Emperor and his role in the larger storyline of what he's actually meant to do as the Emperor of Volcor. Because it's not just about, I'll just say this, it's not just about managing the kingdom of Volcor. His job is not that simple.
That is so intriguing. I'm so glad I asked you. You connected a lot of dots for me. I thought I was caught up. I clearly missed the Shiana connection between Morlock Hill and Uprising there. So you just made a whole lot of sense. And now I'm really looking forward to Dynasty, because I'm really hoping to see. My hot take is that it's going to be the talent set. So I think they're going to add more
they're gonna. I think all talents will also be supported in one way or another. We'll see how that goes. All right, we're rounding the bases here. You're not just a Flesh and Blood guy. Would you say Flesh and Blood is you obviously the DM stands for something, but as it stands right now, what is the primary game on your channel?
Yeah, Flesh and Blood is the primary game on the channel. I've covered a variety of games in the past. I started the channel on Dice Masters, and from that point, I made a bunch of content for Dice Masters, and then kind of jumped off from there. I did, Dice Masters and Keyforge. I did Dice Masters, Keyforge, and Flesh and Blood, and then I started pivoting more towards Flesh and Blood during the pandemic, just because of the way that like releases kind of slowed down basically every other game except Flesh and Blood, which, I mean, kudos to Flesh and Blood and like other major games before making their way through and just keeping a steady stream of stuff for us to play, And now for me, it's just all about it.
Excellent. Fair enough. I can leave it at that. I want to. I think this is our last set of questions here. You're a band director, by occupation. I have band directors in the family. Not that that's relevant to any means, but I can appreciate what you do for work. You obviously have a passion for music. Are you yourself a practicing musician?
Define practicing.
What instrument can you pick up right now and play? You don't have to do it right now, but if
I can pick up any band instrument and play you something.
Ooh, what was your primary concentration?
Trumpet.
Growing up?
Yeah. So I picked up trumpet in 6th grade, and I did trumpet all the way through high school and college. But when you go to college for music education, depending on where you go, you are essentially given either like a crash course in every instrument or like a full semester long course in each instrument in the band, so that you can essentially just teach that. So yeah, I can pick up every band instrument and play you something. And I took all of those classes very seriously because I knew that I wanted to teach kids how to play those instruments. And so I became decently proficient at just about every instrument. So yeah, I could play you a tune. I don't have an instrument here in this room, but yeah, I play instruments every day, and I listen to lots of instruments every day, and it's loud.
Right. Yes, it is. That's fine. My father and my brother are brass people as well. Trombone is the old man, but my brother is a trumpeter mainly as well. He can do the same thing. It was just freaky to me. I have not an ounce of rhythm in my entire body. Can't tune a piano, save my life. But he can pick up a couple rocks and make music out of it. So kudos to you. Your influences in music, who would they be?
Listening or performing?
Let's go with performing.
I don't have a ton of influences, I would say, anymore. I think it's tough because like my job is to train musicians and to, teach them from the ground up. Like right now I'm teaching middle school. So I'm teaching kids how to literally hold the instrument, how to shape their, setups and then play. And so for me, performing is not something that I necessarily go out and actively do, especially with all the other hobbies that I have. And by hobbies, I mean one hobby, and it's what we're doing. Yeah. So I don't necessarily go out and perform. But if I had to pick some people, it would be the people that I studied with in college, because I studied with some of the best trumpet players just on the face of the earth. And not only that, they're even better people, and they very much instilled this idea of like dedicating yourself to a craft, which I think I learned heavily from them and then applied to what I'm doing right now, both music education and also content creation. The idea of dedicating yourself to something and making a very concerted effort to be consistent and that sort of thing, I think is a skill that I learned at a deeper level in high school and college in the arts.
Excellent. Are you a Bryan Adams fan?
No, I'm not. No, here's the weird thing. Are you ready? I don't listen to music.
All right.
So like it's not something that I do. It's like a chef goes and cooks food for like 10 hours and then they go home. Yep. I don't know if that chef cooks for themselves, but if they do, good for them, because I don't listen to music after I'm done teaching it all day. I actively avoid that, and I listen to people talk to each other on the internet, because that is not as loud and painful sometimes to listen to.
Adam, I'm going to throw a curveball. You're going to answer this one. What is your favorite Bryan Adams song? And my personal note, why is it everything I do it for you? I gotta start. It is a community question. I wanted to lead up to see if Steven was gonna be good to answer, but if he's not listening to music, he's not gonna have a favorite Bryan Adams song.
The clear answer is "Summer of '69," and it's not the song from Robin Hood.
It's so
not
good though.
It's not the song from Robin Hood. It's "Summer of '69." It's a full stop on that, and then you move on. And honestly, Bryan Adams, like, I don't know, cut rate Bruce Springsteen. Am I allowed to take that stance? Is that a good enough take? I don't know. I don't like either of them. I'm not gonna lie to you. That is not my genre. I'm not my cup of tea.
I do want to credit. I don't know if you can pronounce his Discord name. I know who he is in real life, but I cannot pronounce. Is that Tyquius?
I think so. Yeah.
All right. He's a member of our Discord, Tyquius. He's a judge. He was with us in New Jersey. I forget his actual name, but he ate dinner with us a whole lot. But that was his community question. Best Bryan Adams song. You're wrong. It's the Robin Hood song.
No,
it's magical.
Everything I do for you. God, it's just so. Oh, it's so quintessentially like cheesy.
Oh man. All right. I have dragged this whole thing through the mud long enough. I have kept you here shackled to the pod, and it is time to wrap it up. Thank you for coming on.
Yes, thank you so
to
much.
The podcast.
Thanks for having me. This was fun.
We appreciate everything that you do, and this is your opportunity right now to plug shill your stuff. Where can we find you? Give me your tags. Give me everything you got.
Oh, for sure. You can find me on youtube.com/DM Armada, making YouTube videos about cards getting banned and feeling salty about them. You can also check me out on Twitter, making posts about cards getting banned and feeling salty. I didn't actually do that much. No, I hang out on Twitter. Twitter, I think, is like something that I totally hated on, and then I started getting into it, and now I love it. But I also do like there's like a page on Facebook you can follow as well. Literally just DM Armada, and Instagram exists. I can't say I post to it, but it exists, so you can hit the follow button there too. Maybe I'll post something spicy to it one day. I don't know.
It is there, and we'll have his links in the show notes below when we do that. All right, you can find us. Before I do the plug, am I missing anything, Adam? Is there something special that we need to say that I'm not remembering?
No, I think we're good. We're covering the plugs this time. That's good.
Yeah, right. Yes. The life is a whirlwind. I am terrible at remembering to plug our own stuff. That's right. I did want to mention. So we have DM Armada is the beginning of a huge month for us in October. And I wanted to do a little rundown real quick of the guests to come. Next week, we are going to have legendary Canadian Nationals caster Frank Hung, better known as Lazy Dog, on social media. He's a quirky little guy. He makes niche food videos, and he is a hell of a flesh and blood player. So he's coming on next week. The week after that, we have the aforementioned new member of the casting team, Brendan Patrick of Arsenal Pass. He is coming on the week of the 18th. And to round out the month, the New Zealand national champion, Matt Rogers,
salty for not being mentioned in the best player in the world poll that the Combat Chain posted a few days ago, will be coming on to end the month of October with us. So big things coming up. We are working on the World Championship primer. I shot my shot to see if I could get James White on. One of a million. There's still a chance. They said no. We're going to be organizing something special for our pre-World Championship episode, which will be the first one in November. So you'll hear more about that later. But if you want to hear all those guests and, of course, Mr. Armada, you can find us on YouTube on the Combat Chain podcast. You can find us on Twitter at the Combat Chain. You can find myself at Pat Smashgood. And you can find a sneezing allergic Adam Philipchuk at Fomtoolery TCG. Now, Stephen, we have one last bit of business to conduct here. We ask all our guests to help out with the outro. Now, I am going to say until next week, and then all of us in unison, in perfect band harmony, we are closing the Combat Chain. Is that something we can ask of you right now?
Let's do it.
All right. DM Armada, thank you again for coming on to the podcast. I think that is going to do it for us, Adam. So until next week, we're closing the Combat Chain. There it is. And that's a wrap.
Did we crush that synchronization?
Oh, it's beautiful. I can see it lined up on the tracks. It looks great.